A lot of us entrepreneurs know that we need the help, but we struggle getting the help. Just like we know we need to go to the gym, and sometimes we struggle getting there. And so what we do is combine all of the learnings that we continuously receive in helping to create those kind of scenarios where entrepreneurs really have freedom and balance in their lives by leveraging a team of remote executive assistants.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Tripe podcast. Today, we have with us Valerie. She is the founder of ChatterBoss, which is a virtual assistant company. And I know many of you are interested in virtual assistants. So who else can tell us more than somebody who has been doing this for years? Valerie, hello. It is a pleasure to have you here. Please tell us more about you, who you are, and why should people listen to this conversation?
Thank you, Maria. Good morning. I'm so excited to be here, and with your energy, it's better than drinking a cup of coffee. So really, thank you for that. So I'm Valerie. I'm the founder of ChatterBoss. ChatterBoss is a remote executive assistant company. We work with entrepreneurs and business owners, and we can connect them with an on-demand remote executive assistant. Our model is unique, and it is the only model of its kind. So I can tell you a little bit about that, but I'll give you some background on me first, the way that I got into creating ChatterBoss to begin with. My career before this has been as a personal and executive assistant and a chief of staff for high net worth and A-list celebrities. And when I was in that position, it was fascinating to be in that world. And I always dreamed while I was in that position, while seeing how celebrities use their assistants, how they leverage their assistants to be able to be more effective and even more successful, and how that ecosystem of their assistants is run. I dreamed of being able to replicate something like this for entrepreneurs, people who are risking so much, putting themselves on the line to create new businesses into our economy, create jobs. And that's what I did 6 years ago by starting ChatterBoss, to create this level of service that celebrities get that can be accessible to entrepreneurs and business owners. So we've been approaching the executive assistant function from a human behavior, from a psychology, psychometric, and delegation coaching perspective. So we really not only are we, from a tactical perspective, provide our entrepreneurs with assistance, but what we also do is provide them with the coaching, provide them with troubleshooting, provide them with the strategic thinking. A lot of us entrepreneurs know that we need the help, but we struggle getting the help. Just like we know we need to go to the gym, and sometimes we struggle getting there. And so what we do is combine all of the learnings that we continuously receive in helping to create those kind of scenarios where entrepreneurs really have freedom and balance in their lives by leveraging a team of remote executive assistants.
So I think this will be a great, way to understand what is it that you need from a VA, what should you look for, when do you need to actually consider hiring a VA, and much more. Valerie, now can you tell us, what is a VA? I know this is a basic question, but I feel like there is such a wide variety of tasks that the VA do that I feel like we should first of all have a definition, at least for this episode.
I really love that question. It's a really good one. 6 years ago when we started, people that were coming in to interact with us were asking, are you AI? Are you automated? Are you a robot? There was a lot more confusion in the market about what virtual assistants do. And with time, that definition has started to get cleared up. But you're exactly right that everyone, I think, has their own understanding of what a virtual assistant is. And that makes a lot of sense because there are a lot of different services out there. Virtual executive assistants, right? Forget that they're virtual or remote. Executive assistants, as their core function, support the organization in the administrative role. So it is in the area of operations and within different companies, people will use their executive assistant differently. Some people use it for email and calendar management, and there's a lot of communication within the organization, and they really use it as a buffer between the CEO and the rest of the organization. There might be finance and billing related items. As this role has continue to expand, you can have executive assistants with certain specialties. So I may need an executive assistant that is able to support more on the marketing side or more on the client success side. So all of that is an acceptable definition within this executive assistant role. You may also need support on the personal side. Lots of entrepreneurs, in order to find that balance, for the lack of balance, sometimes pour a lot of their energy into the business, and then the personal stuff stays at the wayside. And so some people will use their executive assistant as a personal assistant. And in that overall definition, all of these ways of using someone, an executive assistant can work as a project manager. And all of this that I'm saying, how I'm defining it, is the way that we define it at ChatterBoss. I know that though in the larger market, what the association could be for a virtual assistant is someone who is a task doer. For a virtual assistant, we've done research, and what people say is that I'm going to tell them what to do and they're going to do it. So there is an association for low intensity projects, low intensity tasks. There could be almost a stigma in that definition for people sometimes to think that these are people that aren't thinking. These are people that are just doing. And there's also a lot of anxieties that we notice in this space as well. So there is, for all of those different types of definitions, is because there is a spectrum on the types of service, the type of person that you're bringing in, the amount of experience that they have. And that is also the reason you have this wide spectrum of pricing as well. And I know that for people first coming into exploring whether they need an assistant, that can cause some confusion as well.
Gotcha. And if we are to talk about coaches, I know at ChatterBox, you also work with lots of coaches. What have you seen that they need the most? What do coaches need the most from VAs, and where can a VA bring the most value?
Yeah, absolutely. With the coaches, what we have noticed, we support lots of coaches, and it's been one of our favorite type of clients to work with, specifically because coaches oftentimes also have communities. And coaches, similar to some other professions like lawyers or real estate agents, the coach's time is really valuable when they are doing that one-to-one or one-to-many interaction. And so that administrative debt that they have every week, entrepreneurs spend 30 to 60% of their week with administrative functions. That is dollars that they're not receiving from clients, from their groups. So for coaches, it's really costly when they are not in front of their community. And so oftentimes we've seen coaches come in and use assistants for community management functions. If there is a conversation portal, we know that there is a lot of management that is involved in making sure that those conversations are monitored, that there are responses that are being made. So that's been a really popular one for us with our coaches. Also, in terms of invoicing and billing, if there are customized services, setting up automations. So especially if the individual is working with larger communities, we find that setup of that software that will allow them to take on an even larger community and manage those individuals. Items a lot related to social media as well, because coaches have a wealth of content that they are curating and they're creating just by doing their coaching. So if they are recording it, they're having tons of content, and then how to disseminate that content. So a popular one is if you create one piece of content. So for example, we are recording this podcast together. You can have an assistant then cut up this video and put it into smaller snippets for social media, the way that you guys do. You can also have an assistant put this into blogs. You can have them repurpose this in many types of ways. And so lots of times coaches will lean on their assistants, where the coach creates one piece of key content and then the assistant takes it from there.
Yeah, and I love that you said this. And let me just reiterate this for our audience. A good tip that Valerie just mentioned now is if you, for example, do a live, are a guest on a podcast, or you have your own podcast, it is that piece of content, it's incredibly valuable because then you can repurpose it. As Valerie was saying, you can create reels for Instagram, for example. You can write blogs based on this. So I just wanted to put this out there because this is one of the best ways that I know to create content. You just have longer video piece and then you can use it in so many other ways. If you're listening to this, you're probably trying to build and scale your online business. Am I right? Then we have just the thing for you, and it's free.
We're building Pensite to enable people like you to set up your online store and monetize your knowledge via courses, one-to-one sessions, group coaching, digital products, Q&As, and bundles. It's purpose-built for you with bonus features such as video recordings, private notes for each client, Zapier integration, calendar sync, analytics, and much, much more to handle your scheduling automatically, accept payments, and help you scale your business.
Check it out at pensight.com. And now my question, Valerie, is there are already so many functions that you talked about. You said community management, setup automation, billing, social media. Is there usually a single person that does all of these tasks, or do you usually see coach working with multiple VAs?
I really love this question because that is what makes our model unique. Every entrepreneur is paired to a dedicated assistant. That assistant does the majority of the work, especially in the beginning. So you can think of it as the beginning of your team with that dedicated assistant. The way that we choose that dedicated assistant is we first do a coaching strategy session with you where we look at your world of administrative tasks and we build together a 6-month roadmap based on priorities. By looking at that roadmap, we know what is the kind of person, what is the direction that you are going to be taking your VA support with, and we give you the person that is going to be able to execute on the majority of the functions. What we believe is that nobody, including executive assistants, but coaches as well, all of us, we are not Jack and Jills of all trades. We cannot have competencies and strengths in absolutely every single area. And in the moment where we relinquish the things that are in our areas of weakness and focus on our areas of strengths, we become happier and more effective and all of those good things. So the same grace, though, that we've been giving entrepreneurs as this profession evolves, right? To say, focus on your zone of genius. Don't spend time where in things that you don't like and you're not good at. We didn't always give the same grace to assistants. Our feeling is before, it could be, if you're my assistant, you should be able to know and do everything, just figure it out. So we believe that assistants have their own zone of genius. So you get your dedicated assistant based on your needs. In addition to that dedicated person, there is always right away an admin level assistant who is the backup and works in sync with your dedicated person. So right away, you get a team of at least 2. This reduces bottlenecks, but it also allows for this flow because I'm guessing that the reason that you asked this question is because it sounds like a lot, and it is. And that is one of the issues when you are going to hire by yourself one assistant to support you. If that assistant is sick, if they're away, if something happens to them, and if they don't know how to do something, it's a lot of pressure. For that reason, we have a 2-assistant model. An extra layer on top of that is that we also have a team of specialists. So we have video editors, we have designers, we have bookkeepers, and we have over 30 professionals who specialize in different areas. So if you are coming in and you need that specialized support and you ask your assistant, hey, can you do this? They may say, you know what? I don't know how to edit this video, but I can bring in this person to support. And that network of our specialists continues to grow as well. And then lastly, the final layer here is that the assistants also have the access to the network of other assistants. So we have over 170 assistants on our team right now. So this is something that happens on the back end for us. We have a Slack channel for everyone where we facilitate the conversation. And if an assistant, for example, their client is looking to be on podcasts, we often see the assistant saying, hey, my client is looking for podcasts in this kind of area. And then the other assistants start to chime in with a podcast that their clients are doing. Same thing goes for, hey, I don't know how to do this automation, or has anyone had experience with the software? You get this kind of, we create this like superhuman assistance without though putting all of too much pressure on them, right? We give them all of the resources and essentially the entrepreneur all of the resources for success.
Yeah, that really sounds super cool. And it seems like there's a lot of power and synergy created by all of these communication channels and the way that you built your company. So that really sounds incredibly valuable. Now, I want to rewind a bit and ask you, when is the best time to hire a VA for a coach?
You're asking me all my favorite questions. This is a question I really like because I've spent a lot of time contemplating this. Because you can have individuals, let's say, that have just started their coaching business. And they're in their first few months, they're still figuring out, there's a lot of hard decisions to make, and they don't have yet the amount of clients that they would like in order for them to feel like this is something that's feeling sustainable and is something that, you know, they're comfortable with financially. So we have lots of people in all industries and in coaching as well, where in that space, there's the common feeling is, surely this is not the time to get an assistant, right? Because I'm looking at my finances. I'm also looking at the amount of time I have, right? Because I'm not coaching as many people as I would like, and I'm still building my community, I just have more time. There are less activities that are landing on my calendar that are constricting how I'm able to spend my time. So they believe that in these early stages of business, they should be doing things themselves. And that's totally logical. But what we have been searching over time is that it is almost like there is a saying that one of our clients has said to me once, and I really love it. It is like boiling the frog. And it's a really terrible one because it's so sad for the frogs. But I don't know if you know this, but if you put a frog into water and you start to turn up the heat, over time, the frog will adjust to the temperature and it will end up getting boiled, and it will not jump out as the temperature increases because it doesn't know that the temperature increase over time. But if you put a frog, really, I have to find a different example, but if you put the frog into water that is already boiling, they will jump out because they notice how hot it is and that they are in danger. So this example, applying it to when is the right time to start using an assistant, if in the beginning you start to train yourself little by little that you can do the administrative workload, because for any entrepreneur, regardless of the company size, 30 to 60% of the week is spent on administrative tasks. So if you start to train yourself, what I like to say is that people are waiting for the perfect moment. And that perfect moment is at the intersection of finances are feeling good and my time is starting to be limited, but it's not so limited. I could still train someone, and I'm not so stressed, but I'm getting a little bit stressed. It is Goldilocks, right? I'm finding the perfect firmness. And what can happen a lot is that as we dream of this perfect moment when we want to bring someone on, things happen. Our business starts to grow faster, and we often go into that other side, which is, I am overwhelmed. I needed someone yesterday, and now I don't have time to properly train someone, and I'm stressed. And some of the biggest things that our clients have said to us when they are in this, if they're operating in this space, is that I've spent so much time dreaming and wishing that my business would boom. And now that it has, I'm not able to fulfill on demand. And that feels really painful. So the right time, I believe the right time is now. The right time is to get started. And in those beginning stages, people often think it's going to be very expensive, right? So I cannot do it. But with our model in particular, we are designed to grow. We want to work with entrepreneurs in those early stages of their business so that we can grow with them. So for that reason, we're very flexible. It's just a 5-hour a month minimum. And then people can grow with us. So you start with just 1 hour a week. You start to teach yourself to hand things off. And then as you grow, the support that you're getting grows as well.
Wow, this is impressive. And especially that's a stats that you shared with 60% of an entrepreneur's time is spent on admin tasks. That's absolutely insane. Wow. And I was thinking, even at myself, you're right. There's so many admin tasks that there's not much left for that zone of genius and creativity to really come out. That part of our job that we love and really fills us with passion and energy. And yeah. Now, next question. Let's say we know that we need a VA, but how do we find a good VA? And I've also heard about this personality test that some people send to these VAs to take to see if that's a good match. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. People have lots of options as we do these days. And it's actually the abundance of options that sometimes brings us into this analysis paralysis or makes it hard because, as we said, there is such a spectrum to the type of work that you can get support with, the experience levels, and so on. And so we can break it out into kind of if the spectrum is, let's say, what's very popular right now is offshore support with a very low dollar amount per hour. And what can you get from those kind of services and individuals? Because it's a combination, right? We can actually combine all of the different parts of the spectrum to create what it is we're needing. So at this level, if you are delegating, you have to have really good SOPs, standard operating procedures. You have to be really clear on what you're handing off. And there's a lot of preparation that should go in. You should be really clear how you would like this person to spend their time and be ready to train them. What's become popular in this space is agencies, because for you to go and look for someone in a country that you do not know much about, and even if you do, even if you speak the language, the nuances of the way that people work, the way that culture operates, the way that they receive information, how to set up their payments, all of that requires a lot of logistics. So then people go through these. Obviously, I'm a very big proponent of going through this agency style for support. So that's what you can get here. So what I see, for example, we have coaches in the space of delegation, automation, and outsourcing. They are experts in hiring and delegating, creating SOPs and explaining to people what to do. So I find that my clients and my coaches that are real experts that have gone through the school of delegation and they know exactly what they want, that is the moment that you can absolutely start to use inside of your kind of VA needs model, someone in this space. I do not recommend for entrepreneurs to start there because there is a lot of miscommunication that can happen in the virtual executive assistant function. It's really rooted in communication. We want to understand the person. We want to be understood. And I can tell you later, if there's time, a funny story of a miscommunication that I had with my assistant last week. And it was really telling about the complexities of this role. At the very other end of this, how do I get my executive assistant needs met, is full-time hiring. I have 40 hours per week and I'm able to hire directly. This is where you would definitely do a direct hire. And then in between, we have services where I find ChatterBoss to be at that sweet spot because one, I like to say that your assistant generally should be in the country where you are or where you are doing business. I believe in that because there are nuances for communication. With that said, we have clients in Australia, we have clients in Europe, and that is where they really want to be. Those are the clients if their business is outside of the US. Our assistants are US-based executive assistants, but we'll have coaches and entrepreneurs from other countries leverage us specifically if they want to learn from what the US market in coaching is doing. And that's a really nice way. So where can you find these people? There is Fiverr. Fiverr will give you a really wide range, but more on that spectrum of you'll find a lot of offshore and talent within your country. Upwork is another one where you can find people. Sometimes people put up job postings on LinkedIn and then they go through that entire process as well. And then again, obviously, of course I am biased, right? But the reason that I believe it is such a good idea to leverage a virtual executive assistant company is because you get more than the assistant, because what you are needing in reality is more. So you get the assistant, you get the backup support, you get the additional people, But with us as well, our clients get unlimited access to client success. So these people are delegation gurus. They are there for troubleshooting. So what we promise, because we cannot promise that there will never be a miscommunication, because even at our level of training and expertise and research, miscommunication happens all the time. Like I said, it happened to me last week, a really funny miscommunication. But what we do promise you is that we're going to clear the fog around what happened so that you can trust yourself, you can trust the other person, and you can be very clear on how to move on from any miscommunication and improve it for the next time. So you're not left in this place of something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. That's a lot of people end up in that space with this role, and we look to eliminate that.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a lot of value in having that team support, the external support that can be there to intermediate the collaboration. I think that is absolutely great to have. Now, because you've worked with so many assistants over the last years, I wanted to ask you, what are some traits that you've seen define a good assistant? What are those really good ones? What traits do they possess? Is there anything that stands out? What should we look for?
Yeah, we are really focused on human behavior and looking through the lens of psychology. So we use a character assessment, not just to assess our assistants, but our clients as well. So we do that pairing. So the answer is it depends on you, on the entrepreneur's personality, what kind of person it is that they need. And that's been really fun. It's been one of my most favorite parts to explore because, for example, we can look at the characteristic of introversion versus extroversion. Some assessments, actually, if you're like, I'm going to buy it for the purposes of testing my assistants, these tests will say that an executive assistant should be extroverted. That's what the market says is the right type of assistant. But what we know, this is not true. It's based on what is the other person that they are working with? How are their teams? Because if I am on one side of the spectrum at the extreme of extroversion and my assistant is at the extreme of introversion, what we are constantly doing to each other is I, for example, always want to be meeting. I want to be doing things last minute, but also I want to be doing them together. A lot of the time, the way that I spend time with my assistants is that we share screen, and it's a little bit like babysitting. I need that help to get things done, but there's a lot of conversation and it's a lot of in-time work. If that drains you and you have clients that are always asking this from you, this is going to be harder for you to fulfill. I love character assessments. I use them and I stand by psychometrics. And I want to encourage communities to use psychometrics responsibly, because the way that a lot of these interpretations will spit out at you is that they will actually tell you that these amazing assistants that are going to be the best for you, they're going to say, hey, this person falls into the moderate or caution range, do not hire them. And that is not true. So it's something that you're able to assess yourself and you're able to assess the other person, work with a professional to interpret. And that's, as you are saying it, I never thought of it in this way. It would be very interesting if to this audience, that is something fun. We are able to do the assessment for you. Let's say, aside from working with an assistant or not, we can do the assessment for you and we can provide for you an interpretation of what is your delegation style? How do you work? And what would be the right assistant for you? What should you look for? So that could be something that we can offer to this community. We do it for our clients, and it's something interesting that you just gave me an idea for.
I'm glad I did. Let's say we know we need an assistant. We were lucky enough to find an assistant that seems like the right fit. Now, how can you optimize using a VA? What is the best way to get the most value out of your VA?
That's a brilliant question. One exercise that I've done with entrepreneurs before is having them create a job description first for themselves. So I'm the CEO. What is it that I do all day? And it's surprising, right? In many organizations, we create job descriptions for everyone in our organization except for ourselves. What is it that we do all day? Because I think that we often don't do it because that's very scary. If I'm going to write down on paper what it is that I personally do all day, I'm going to be confronted with that there's lots of ways that I manage to waste my time. And that could be embarrassing for my own self, right? So I encourage this creation of your job description and why that's related to how to use an assistant in the most efficient way, because your assistant is most useful when they are taking as many things off of your plate so that you can do the things that your company really requires you, that only you can do. And so that audit is really important. So what I'll do is say, break it down into categories, write what it is that you do on an everyday basis. You can have that document open for about a week. And as you're noticing, I didn't realize I do this thing, start adding it there. And then after you've spent a week doing that, another way to do it is to audit your time, to get a time tracker. And as you are doing anything for work, on it during any given day, start keeping notes and start keeping the track of time. In the end of one of those two exercises, you're going to be very clear where are the things that someone else can start to help you with, and we'll highlight those, and then make a plan to delegate those things out. And you can do this kind of audit every 3 to 6 months, because the truth is that the administrative things, they creep up on us. And some of us, we get into this like Zen, almost like meditation when we're doing administrative work. Like we don't need to do it, but it's easy. And so we get stuck with it. So definitely making sure that what the person is working on is really the thing that's going to move the needle in your business.
Got it. And in terms of making sure that they put in the work, how can we be sure of how effective they are, or if they actually do what we're paying them to do?
Lots of anxieties around this, lots of anxieties around security in this space. Oftentimes you're working with some of the most sensitive information that you have in your business, oftentimes with someone that you don't know. One way that we've been training our assistants and our clients to hedge for this, when you're working with someone new, especially an executive assistant that can have so much sensitive information, start with 1 or 2 very clear and measurable tasks. Those that will, if they get done, they're going to delight you, but also those that you feel really comfortable handing off. You're going to see pretty quickly how is the communication. You're going to pretty quickly see how is that person completing the work. And what we also have that I'm also very happy to share with this community is a delegation scorecard. And so what we do with that is it's a scorecard that you're able to use before you hand off a project. So you fill it in on your own. And it asks you, how much time do you want the person? What is the outcome? How do you want them to do this, etc. So you have a really clear set of instructions. And then for you to be able to see that it's done, you should be able to, at the end of the project completion, fill in the other half of the scorecard and say, yes, was it done in the amount of time I was expecting? Yes. Was this outcome what I wanted? Yes or no? If no, then there's a third layer of the scorecard that says, what happened? Where was the break? Is it your communication? Is it the assistant's comprehension? Is it a third kind of factor? And that's where you learn. But really start slow. You have to start slow to build that foundation and trust. Because if you do not start from a place of trust, then it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy a lot of the time. You're just going to find those elements of things that don't work, and you can fail fast with that. So really start slow in a moderate, in a way that feels comfortable for you, but also give trust.
Yeah, these are all very important. And it made me think about what should we do in a situation where we have this feeling that we are not pleased with the VA. Let's say we gave them a chance already. We don't see the results that we want. Maybe we're going to give them a second chance because some part of our collaborations has potential and so on. The question is, when do we know it's time to let go of the VA? And when should we stick with the process in the hope of better things coming our way?
The thing is that when you are building, it's a little bit like an oxymoron, that it's, on the one hand, you have to create the kind of environment where if something happens that you're able to talk about it and be clear. And the second thing is, you don't owe second chances, right? But to be really clear about that is that you first have to understand really what happened, right? Because a second chance says you did something that was wrong and like really against what I was asking. So it's really like a second chance implies there was like a significant failure. What entrepreneurs and coaches experience a lot of the time is that they're not sure if they're in the second chance realm. Does that make sense? Like it's nothing actually, a mistake didn't happen. and it was a miscommunication. If it's a miscommunication, then you are not giving a person a second chance. You are just correcting and making your communication clear. So that is the space that you really have to work in, because there's going to be miscommunication all the time. If you want everything to be perfect, you have to do it yourself, and you're never going to grow. So in order to get help from others, there's going to be those misfirings, and we shouldn't even consider them as mistakes. However, if it really was not just a mistake, because we're human and we're going to make mistakes, but if it was a deep disconnect, right? I asked for this and we were both clear and still it didn't happen. You don't owe to do it a second time. So we don't want to gaslight ourselves either. So it's a really delicate balance. I have a book coming out next year exactly on this topic, and we break down how it is. How do you figure out, was it an error? Was it a miscommunication? Was it a total breakdown and we should part ways? So that's definitely something I'd love to share with this audience as well when it's ready.
We would love to get our hands on that. So I'm super excited for that. Now, what is the best advice for someone who had a VA, but it didn't go well and they're nervous to try again?
I have so much empathy for entrepreneurs who are in this space. And this is the reason that I say, don't start at those higher complexity delegation scenarios. Don't put yourself in those scenarios as your first interaction, because it's not that it's impossible. It's just that it's hard and you have to be an expert. So a lot of the time we do have individuals that have come from those scenarios, and it wasn't that the person was wrong. It wasn't that the service was bad. It was just that we didn't choose the right service for our level of needs. Like, I always like to have complete ownership. When something goes wrong, I'm like, what can I have done better? So I would say in order to grow, you have to get through this. If you're at a stage of, I was burned, but now what? You're just going to do it yourself. You actually have no choice. You have to go. It's like going to the gym, right? I had a really hard session. I'm not going to go. You don't have a choice. You have to go. If you want to be fit, you want your body to be doing the things that you want it to be doing, you have to keep going back, but you have to find your way. So really find a way, if you've had that kind of a negative experience before, to do it with guardrails, to do it with bumpers, so that you can lean on the expertise of others that have been doing this for a long time to guide you.
Got it. This was really useful. So I'm still taking in all of this valuable information. Honestly, some really good points that you make, and I'm really happy we're having this conversation. Now we're getting towards the end, and I wanted to ask you one more question. We know there are more and more tools that we can use when it comes to task delegation, or we mentioned the ones for personality assessment. But when it comes to task delegation, is there any tool that you know that you could recommend to help us delegate our tasks?
A project management system, whichever one you choose, it is essential. When we are talking every day asynchronously in text messages or Slack or WhatsApp or wherever we are, those are appropriate for some short bits of communication, but always you're distracting the other person when you're sending that communication. So unless it's urgent, the correct way to delegate projects is through a project management system, to have a board set up. When you get started with ChatterBoss, we automatically create a project management board for you. We use Monday.com. It's a really visually appealing one. But whichever project management system you choose, Trello, Asana, all of them are perfect as long as the methodology in using the project management system is set up correctly.
Okay, that was it on our topic. I just wanted to ask you, Valerie, where can people find you and why should they reach out to you? What's on the table?
Yeah, absolutely. So the way that you're able to find us is to go to chatterboss.com. That's BOSS.com. You're able to schedule a consultation with one of our relationship managers and delegation coaches. So in that conversation, they can also answer a lot of specific questions that you may have had. All of the tools and resources that I mentioned during this podcast, the delegation scorecard, if you'd like to take the assessment, if you go ahead and schedule the consultation and you ask for it during, that's something that we'll be gladly to provide for you. And for all of the listeners of the podcast, we are offering $50 off when you get started in our first month as well.
Wow. That is really generous. So you heard Valerie, go check it out, get that discount. And yeah, Valerie also has a Penside profile where she will have all of the links and you can find more about her there. I just want to thank you, Valerie, for today. So much value, so much input, and I am so grateful for our conversation. Thank you very much for the audience who stick with us till the end. And any last words from you?
Thank you guys so much and good luck. This is the year that everyone is scaling. This is the type of support that is so needed. Really good luck to all of us in this.
Hope you enjoyed this episode.
We'll be releasing every Wednesday, so make sure to
Subscribe
and rate us 5 stars where you're listening to this show to give others a chance to discover it too.